Chapter 15, Downward Spiral. The summer passes, and Rusty and the others see very little of Jake, as he fades into a self-inflicted obscurity. Rusty and Amy start dating officially, and after a few months, school begins again. Rusty and Amy walk down the hallway after their first period class to their lockers. They pass Derek and K-Dog standing by Derek's locker talking. "How are you enjoying high school?" asks Derek. "It's fun, but a little confusing. I had a lot of trouble finding my first class." "I walked you through the routine last week before school started and you still couldn't find it?" "I did. It just took me a little longer than expected." "And what about you?" "I didn't have any trouble, but I'm not sure where my next one is. Where's Reynard?" asks Amy. "You got Renard?" "Old man or Brett?" asks K-Dog. Richard, I think." "Oh, cool. You got class with me and Derek." "I'll just follow you guys then." "Who do you got, little bro?" asks Derek. Jim with Mr. Heckman." "You might want to check it for Mitch. He usually hangs in there all day." Gavin and Kaylee walk up looking flushed. "What's up, guys?" asks Derek. "Guess who showed up looking like a total psychopath?" asks Kaylee. "Who?" "Jake. We saw him a few minutes ago. He's completely rocked out in leather and looks like he's been off in the mountains all summer. He's buffed out and sporting scars and even a man beard," says Gavin. "Did you talk to him?" asks Rusty. "I said hi, and all he did was smile. But it wasn't a good smile. It was like one of those evil Gary Oldman grins," says Kaylee. "He might have completely snapped over the summer. He's liable to do anything," says Rusty. "Maybe his solitude has been good for him. He could be a changed guy," says Amy. "We can only hope." "Here he comes," says Kaylee. Jake walks down the hall sporting a black, sleeveless leather jacket, ripped jeans, and shades. His arms are laced with faint scars. His hair is unkempt, as if not cut or brushed for years. Jake strides towards them, his hands in his pockets. As he walks, two large football players in their Letterman jackets from last year intercept him. "Look how lucky we are. We get to run into our old buddy Jake Stewart on the first day of school," Todd Kaysen says, grinning. "What's with the shades indoors? You trying to show off?" Vaughn Johnson adds. "Like he has a reason to show off, the little faggot." "Get lost," whispers Jake, pushing them out of the way. Todd balls his fists and reaches for Jake. "Didn't we tell you we were going to make your life a living hell this year?" Jake slaps Todd's hand out of his way and continues walking. "You're a nobody, Stewart. A fucking loser. No one touches me," Todd shouts, rearing back to throw a punch. Jake takes off his shades and looks into the guy's eyes. "Guess your daddy never heard about that, did he?" A collective hush falls on the group of teens as they watch the color flush out of the large football player's face. It's obvious that no one has ever spoken to him in such a manner before. "Holy shit," whispers Derek. Jake quickly stomps on Todd's toe and elbows him in the gut. As he falls back, Jake spins, kicking him across the face and sending him flying against the lockers. Jake turns to the other, but he runs away quickly in fear. Putting his sunglasses back on, he continues walking. "Hey, Jake," says Kaylee. Jake stops and stares at them, glaring from beneath the shades at Rusty. "Hey, man, where'd you disappear to all summer?" asks K-Dog. "I went to visit my grandparents in Florida," whispers Jake in a deep, raspy voice. "You sure have changed a lot," says Gavin. "Change is good," adds Kaylee, "as long as you're still you." "You are still you, right?" "I'm more me now than ever." Rusty looks him up and down. "You've been training," says Rusty. "Maybe a little here and there." The two eye each other down. No one else can sense it, but to them, the other's auras flicker brightly around their bodies. Their energies collide with each other, sparkling violently. Rusty's energy blue, Jake's red. A twinkle of energy gleams off Jake's shades and he smiles. I can see that you have been too. Maybe a little here and there. The bell rings, ending the tension. All around them, students begin to disperse and make their way to class. We gotta run. See you guys later, says Derek. Yeah, I'll see you later, whispers Jake. I'll be seeing you around, Rusty. Right, whispers Rusty, walking away slowly. Rusty, K-Dog, Amy, and Derek walk to their classes. You heard him. He still has it out for me, says Rusty. He seemed pretty mellow to me, says Derek. I could sense a lot of anger still in him. He may have found a way to control it, but it's still there. Well, we can't avoid him. That's the last thing he needs right now. But we also can't let our guards down around him either. He's obviously still disturbed, says Amy. As they walk down the hall, Jake follows behind, dragging his hand across the lockers. Rusty hears something and turns around to see Jake behind them at a distance. Jake smiles and holds a hand up in parting. They get to their classes, but Jake doesn't go, and hangs around in the hallway instead. A hallway monitor walks up to him with his notepad. Why aren't you in class? Asks the hallway monitor. And your clothing's completely out of dress code. You're going to need to change clothes as well. Why do you care? You're just a student like me. Why side with those prick teachers? Jake asks. It's my job. You need to go to your class. No, I think I'm going to stay right here. The hall monitor begins to write in a small notebook. How do you spell your name? F-U-C. I'm serious, the hall monitor says, glancing up from his pad in frustration. I'm going to go get the principal. Do it. Go get him. What are you waiting for? Says Jake, getting in his face. He smiles and snatches the hall monitor's notepad. You jotting down guys' phone numbers while you're at it? Shut up. Give me that back. Don't tell me what to do, says Jake, smacking him with the notebook. I tell you what to do. Jake slaps the hall monitor across the face with his notebook dozens of times, till his nose, lips, and eyelids are bleeding. Oh, stop bleeding, you pussy. I barely touched you, says Jake, slapping the notebook into his chest. The hall monitor staggers, holding his notebook, and falls to his back. The boy slips into unconsciousness, Jake unaware of how much strength he's exuding, even while holding back. What the hell? Shouts the freshman biology teacher, Mr. Jackson, who is walking by. He fell down. What's your name, you little delinquent? Delinquent? I like that. That sounds cool, says Jake. You're coming with me, the teacher says, grabbing Jake by an arm. Hands off, Pops. Jake rips his arm free and glares at the man. Getting kicked out on your first day, you're going to be in for a fun year, kid. Lots of fun, starting with putting you in a coma, says Jake, pushing the teacher into the lockers. The teacher slams against the lockers hard and falls to the ground. I don't adhere to your rules anymore. I don't need you or anyone else bossing me around. I didn't come here to put up with you. I came here to see a few people, so back the fuck off. The teacher starts to say something, but Jake kicks him in the face, knocking him out. He feels through his pockets, finding a set of keys to the roof. Jake stands before Damon Rodnovich, having come to the man's house in Florida, seeking training. Rodnovich flexes, pushing Jake back with his aura. Jake shields his face with his arms, fighting to hold his ground. If you can't even stand in my presence, then I've got no time to waste teaching you a damn thing, Rodnovich growls. Go home, kid, you're wasting both of our time. No, Jake says, straining to lower his arms. The intense energy whipping against him like powerful winds reddens his face. I didn't come here just to give up. The teen flares out his own aura, providing a buffer zone between their two powers. Good, Radnovich grins. You figured out a solution quickly. You're very adaptable. Jake is amazed that he can now move freely around the Titan, despite still feeling his incredible energy. Without your aura protecting you, an energy as strong as mine could kill you eventually, Radnovich explains. The team begins to breathe heavily, sweat appearing on his face. It's hard to keep it up. How do you do it? Dial it back to the bare minimum. You only need an aura skin to provide protection. Using your full output like that constantly will burn you out. Jake nods, amazed that he's already learning so much, after having only arrived minutes ago. Radnovich suddenly lunges, driving a fist into Jake's gut. The teen's eyes bulge and he doubles over in pain, gasping for air. Your defense sucks, Radnovich scoffs. Always have your guard up. Jake shakily straightens up, wincing in pain. Even if you appear to be relaxed, stay alert. Lure your enemy into attacking half-assed, thinking your guard's down, when in fact it's fully enforced. Radnovich strikes again, Jake attempting to block with his hand. The impact shatters the bones in the teen's hand, and he screams out in agony. Stupid, Radnovich growls. You never block an opponent that much stronger than you. If the difference in power between us is so great, use evasion. If you must defend, increase your aura to lessen the force and take the impact more to your energy than your fragile body. You'll still suffer some damage, but it'll be less. Radnovich quickly grabs Jake's injured hand and squeezes. The teen cries are deafening. Why did you allow me to target your weakness? I already know I broke your hand. Any decent fighter's going to exploit that. Jake throws his weight into a kick to the face, but it does not break Radnovich's grip. You're only using your physical strength against me. My aura alone is going to negate that force to almost nothing. To get through my aura to do any kind of significant damage, you'll have to fuel your attack with an adequate amount of your own energy. Radnovich continues to squeeze, making it difficult for Jake to concentrate. The teen is aware that Radnovich is teaching him through extreme conditions, forcing him to adapt and learn quickly. With only a little over a month until school starts back up, he's going to need to advance as fast as possible to grow stronger. Channeling much of his energy and directing it towards his leg, Jake kicks again, this time able to cause Radnovich's face to turn slightly with discomfort. Still needs a lot of work, Radnovich complains. But I might be able to salvage you as a fighter. You at least follow instructions pretty well. Despite this, the man still does not release his grip. Your first task is to get away from me. I will warn you, if you're unable to get free, you're going to be hurt much worse. Jake tries another energy-infused kick to the face, but Radnovich lifts the teen into the air and slams him into the ground. Are you frickin' kidding me? I just taught you that move. Did you think that I wouldn't expect it right off the bat? You need to be that much more creative if you want to not end up getting crippled. Jake posts his hands forward and rotates, spinning so that he's able to land two hard, successive kicks. The blows stagger Radnovich, but he still maintains his hold. The teen tries a variety of different attacks, but nothing seems to work. Radnovich occasionally smashes Jake against the ground to remind him who is in control. Jake's energy fluctuates wildly and begins to flicker. Instinctively, the teen throws his free hand out towards Radnovich's face and releases all of the built-up energy into a blast. The attack stumbles the man, finally breaking his grip. Jake drops into a crouch, breathing heavily. You've already managed to use your energy as a weapon, Radnovich says. I'm impressed. Now, prove to me it wasn't a fluke. Do it again. Jake struggles, the pain in his hand making it difficult to focus. Radnovich backhands the teen, busting open his nose and mouth and sending him crashing back through a wooden tool shed. Are you letting a little pain hold you back? You're gonna get hurt. Deal with it, Radnovich growls. Jake stands back up, clearing himself from the broken wood and scattered tools. That's the spirit, kid. Always get back up. Don't ever let your enemy have an easy victory. If you're going to lose a fight, your opponent better be on the verge of death themselves, And even then, you should take them down with you at that point. Losing is failure. Do you want to be a failure? Jake shakes his head before wiping the blood from his face. I'm not going to be a loser either. Rodnovich grins. This is going to be fun. I haven't had someone to let loose against in a long time. Jake lowers into a fighting stance, feigning that his injured hand is perfectly fine. He ignores the pain and even manages to close it into a fist. Whatever it takes, I'm going to get stronger. I don't know what's motivating you, kid, but it better be one hell of a fire, Rodnovich says. I am going to beat you down and break you 100 times. You better be able to put yourself back together and come at me with even more passion each time, or you're never going to survive my training. I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I'm not going to give up, and I'm not going to fail. Radnovich shakes his head. If you don't value your life either, you are going to fail. The desire to survive is one of the strongest motivators that exists. Self-preservation can sometimes even outweigh the desire to protect others. I'm going to test all of your motivations and convictions. You are going to become a hollow shell in which I can fill back up with my lessons. The question is, do you have what it takes? Jake walks into the bathroom of the school and pulls out a lighter. I need a diversion to get Rusty to the roof alone. He ignites the paper towels in the trash can and leaves the room. A few minutes later, the fire alarm goes off. The students run into the hall as procedure, but are stopped as the smoke covers the halls. Rusty looks through the smoke and sees Jake motion for him to follow him as he goes up to the roof. You haven't changed at all, have you? Growls Rusty as he reaches the roof to find his cousin awaiting him near the edge. Very wrong. I've changed a lot. I didn't come here to kill you, Rusty. Not even to fight you. I just came to give you a warning. A warning? About what? I've got a plan. It's not some revenge plot or anything like that. In fact, my plan's just to live. I'm going to do what I want, when I want to. So what's the warning? You stay out of my way, or you and everyone you know will get hurt. Jake smiles and jumps off the roof. Jake! Rusty runs to the edge, but he's gone. How would he survive that fall? Jake walks down the street. Fire trucks and police cars whirring by. A girl walks up behind him. That was some nice work back there. They'll know it was you, though, when the teacher wakes up, says Danny. He won't be waking up for a while. He will identify you, though. He saw your face. No, he won't. I picked up a few tricks this summer. His short-term memory's gone. Well, that's pretty ingenious. Where'd you learn that? Danny asks. I just picked it up somewhere. Is there a point to you bugging me? I just thought we could hang. You seem pretty cool. And in need of some companionship. I don't need any companionship. Friends only betray you. Some are up front about it. Danny smiles. She tries her hardest to appear innocent. Both she and Jake know that it's nothing more than a game. Jake decides for now to play the strange girl's game and see where it leads. I've seen you around before, but I don't think we've ever actually met. I'm Danny, and you're Jake Stewart. Want to grab something to eat? Jake eyes the girl suspiciously. Sure. Are you buying? Lieutenant Rollins sits at his desk, trying to finish a report on the recent murder-suicide, when detectives Paul Morris and Jared Osteen enter with a knock on the door. Sir, you wanted to know if anything pertaining to the combustion killer case came up, Osteen says, placing a file on the desk. Another participant from the tournament has gone missing. Richard Swanson. He and his younger brother Thomas were taken in the middle of the night. There were no signs of foul play. It may have nothing to do with the case, but we thought you'd want to know anyway, Morris said. Lieutenant Rollins looks up and opens the file. The most recent school photo of the teenager stares back at him, and he feels a deep chill. Thank you. I'll look over it as soon as I finish up this other case file. 2 of the top 4 participants are dead, and 1 of the top 8 is abducted. What am I missing here? Lieutenant Rollins wonders. I still have my suspicions over Radnovich, but he had a solid alibi with over a dozen witnesses, placing him at a bar downtown the night Brian Chin was murdered. Rusty punches the wall at his house. Come on, man, you didn't know, says Derek. He threatened me. He set that fire and beat those people up, all because he wants to get under my skin. He did say he didn't come to mess with you, didn't he? Asks Amy. I don't believe him. I think he's just trying to taunt and bait me into something. Another fight? Maybe. I'm not sure yet. Let's just let things play out. He could be bluffing, says Derek. Most people set fire in a school bathroom and assault people when they're bluffing, right? No one says anything. All 3 of the teens feel a terrible unease at Jake's personality shift over the summer break. Jake and Danny walk down the back streets of Rockland to kill time. Interested in his martial arts, Danny coaxes him to speak out about his summer training. He tells her that he tracked down Radnovich, the man who eliminated him in the tournament, to take him up on his offer of training. And he didn't think you were an absolute psycho coming to his house like that? Danny picks up a rock and throws it through a window as they walk. That's why he dropped out of the range of our spells. He skipped town, Danny thinks in frustration. Jake tenses at the thought of Radnovich and his summer of training with the man. No, I actually think he enjoyed torturing me. I spent several weeks with that psycho, but I think it was worth it in the end. He made me a lot stronger. Jake still feels the lingering, painful strikes of the rattlesnakes on his arms. Radnovich stands over him, laughing. Having fun yet, you little shithead? The giant bellows as Jake is forced to move the dozens of poisonous snakes from one pit to another bare-handed. This'll make you as tough as me. We're not talking calluses from jerking off. Nah, these are real man's injuries. Toughen your skin up and build up a tolerance of pain. Don't worry, kid. I got gallons of anti-venom. Radnovich continues to laugh. Damn, Radnovich's friend Adrian Scrimauer says, walking over to see the teen being attacked by the snakes. Don't you think you're overdoing it a bit? The kid came to me for training, Radnovich laughs, taking a beer from Scrimauer as he opens up a paper bag containing a 6-pack. What did he think was going to happen? This isn't some martial arts school. I didn't get the way I am through katas and taking belt tests. This is real life. This is how a real man gets strong. This is why I'm your only friend, Scrimauer says, shaking his head. You're a complete sadist. The fuck did you say? Radnovich asks, glaring at the man. I ain't no fucking pedo. This isn't some pleasure thing. The kid wants to get strong like me, and this is the way I got to where I am. It's fine, Jake says, straining to stand. Several snakes remain latched onto his arms and legs. I asked for this. If this is how I get stronger, then I have to endure. Kid is as fucking crazy as you are, Scrimauer laughs, shaking his head. Unbelievable. You did a DNA test yet? This kid might be your bastard or something. Doing good, kid. Just make sure you're pulling the snakes off you and not pulling away from the snakes. The fangs will do much more damage being ripped free than they would be if you pull them straight off without flinching. Jake nods, removing the snakes carefully. I think I'm getting used to it. His head suddenly becomes hazy and he collapses. Not bad. Kid lasted longer than I thought he would, Radnovich says, standing up. Them snakes are pretty venomous. Venomous snakes? You're even crazier than I thought, Scrimauer shouts. What if the kid dies? I got you to make sure that it doesn't happen, Ranovich says with a shrug. Besides, I got plenty of swamp around, and the kid said he didn't tell anyone where he was at. So what do you do to pass the time? Danny asks as Jake becomes silent. I used to hang out with my friends. Danny senses an opening and pushes for more information. That doesn't sound like that's an option anymore. The people I called my friends betrayed me. Well, I thought they did. But I don't need them. Danny stops in front of a nice-looking house, which she recognizes. Hold on a sec. I have someone I have to talk to real quick, says Danny. Danny runs up to a nearby house and bangs on the door. An old man opens up and she pushes him inside, closing the door behind her. Badare al controle, Danny whispers, causing the old man's eyes to glaze over. The man walks over to his jacket, draped over a black leather recliner, and he pulls out an alligator skin wallet. An ID inside reads, Judge Philip Waite. Judge Waite pulls out $200 bills and hands them over zombie-like to Danny, who smiles and slaps him on the ass. A few minutes later, Danny walks outside and Jake notices her shoving the bills into her pocket. I got some cash now. Where did you get that money? Did you just rob him? Is that man hurt? Asks Jake as they walk. You say that like there'd be something wrong with it. And you don't think there is? Coming from a guy who set fire in a school and then beat the hell out of several people, I didn't think theft would be an issue. Jake swallows hard, becoming fearful of what this girl is capable of. Is he hurt? I persuaded him to give me the money freely, like I persuaded the campus security not to investigate your beatings. Danny smiles, seeing Jake's expression grim. A girl can't reveal all her secrets on the first date. This is not a date, Jake replies coldly. This is you prodding me for information. I'm not stupid. The guys I attacked were hassling me. I was provoked. I may have not been fully justified, but I didn't steal from them or beat them up to be a bully. You're a lot lamer than I thought you were. Here I was thinking you were a guy who likes to go out and have a little harmless fun. Harmless means inflicting harm to no one. Whatever, goody two-shoes, says Danny, walking off. Jake pauses. Against his better judgment, he shouts back to the girl. Wait. Danny turns around, smiling. Wait up, says Jake. Rusty stares out at the stars from his porch. His father walks up to him and sits down. What you thinking about, son? Asks Gator. It's Jake. I feel like I'm responsible for what's happening to him. Don't. That's what he wants you to feel. Like you've done something wrong. I believe in your judgment, kid, and I know you'll make the right decisions when the time comes. Time? When what time comes? All conflicts have to end physically. It's just inevitable. I know you'll do whatever your heart tells you to do. But is that enough? It has to be. It's all we can go on. Our eyes can lie to us. Our ears can lie to us. Others can lie to us. But we can't fool our heart. Just follow it. Thanks, Dad. Do you think Jake can be saved? Do you think there's enough of him still in there to be able to go back to the way the things were? Things can never go back to the way they were. That's life. It changes. What we do to deal with the changes, that's what makes us who we are. Jake will never be the Jake we once knew. But it's not impossible for changes to happen that can make him good again. Things can never go back, but we can make things better from where we stand. Rusty whispers, thinking deeply about his father's words. Right. You're a smart kid, says Gator, messing up the boy's hair. I don't want to hurt him, Dad. I know. I don't want to see him get hurt. But I don't want you to get hurt trying to avoid it either. Jake and Danny sit on a rooftop, watching the cars go by. "Do you think that they see us up here and wonder what we're looking at?" asks Jake. "They probably think we're loons." "Maybe we are loons. Maybe that's all this is. Insanity be such a simple excuse. A crazy person doesn't know he's crazy, though, does he?" "You think too much. That's your problem. Enjoy life a little. Stop being so uptight," Danny says. "I'm not uptight." "Yeah, you are. You're 15 going on 50. Stop being a prude," says Danny, shoving him in the back. "Shut up, I'm not." "Show me then. Do something crazy." "You can't just be crazy at will. It's spontaneous. It just happens. Trust me, I know." "Then be spontaneous. You'll enjoy it." Jake stands up and backs towards the edge of the roof. "Spontaneous?" asks Jake again, inching closer. Danny nods, grinning. Jake turns around and jumps off the roof, plummeting down towards the ground. Jake throws his arms out and grabs hold of a window ledge to slow down his fall, making the drop only about 20 or 30 feet. Jake drops to the ground, landing firmly on his feet and falling back, his legs sore. Danny leaps down behind him, but doesn't use anything to break her fall, flipping in the air and landing like a cat next to him. She looks up, her hair in her face, as she slowly stands up, not breaking eye contact with Jake. Danny grins and brushes her hair away from her face. "What the hell was that?" asks Jake. "What was what?" "That little Catwoman thing you just did." "I just have good balance. And a shitload of energy and practice. You're a fighter, aren't you?" "Is it that obvious?" "Not at first. I just thought something was off about you. I could see your aura, but it was distorted, not shaped to your body. Then I just figured you were suppressing it into that shape." "You can read energy." "I suppose you do as well?" "You scouted me, didn't you?" "You're smart, too," smiles Danny. "Why? I don't like to be played." "I assure you, you're not being played. We just may have a common goal in the future. I really would like for us to be friends." "Friends or a puppet? Which is it?" Danny grabs Jake's hand and slides her fingers between his. "Friends, I promise." "This doesn't mean I trust you," says Jake, eyeing her warily. "Then I'll have to earn that." "Maybe so. I need to get some rest, though." "Rest for what?" "I have a big day at school tomorrow." "You're going back again?" "Yeah, and I'm going to need you to come with me. I have some plans." Rusty slips on his clothes as he gets ready for school and eyes his pocket knife on the table as he grabs his book bag. After much debate, Rusty walks down the stairs, leaving it behind. I have to try to avoid violence. He needs help. "You going to school today? I figured you'd call in sick," Derek says, coming out of the bathroom. "No one has gotten anywhere running from their problems. I'm sure there's an example. I just can't think of one this early in the morning," Derek laughs with a shrug. "Have you heard if the police proved that it was Jake who set the fire?" "Last I heard, all the security tapes were pulled and being reviewed. I'm sure they'll determine it was him pretty quickly. He'll be put in juvie, and that'll be the end of things for a while. I don't think Jake would go out that easily. I'm sure he has thought things through. Jake's smart, but he's also crazy, and crazy makes mistakes. If they don't get him for the arson, they're sure as hell gonna nail him for the multiple assaults." "I guess you're right. I just have a bad feeling about all this." "Why wouldn't you? You have a jealous psychopathic cousin lighting fires in public school bathrooms and assaulting students and teachers alike. And oh yeah, he also murders dogs when he's in a bad mood." Rusty and his brother move into the kitchen where their mother is just setting waffles on plates for the boys. Each grabs 2 waffles and pours a glass of milk. "I'm just saying, the cops are better suited to deal with someone like Jake," Derek says, having half of a waffle in his mouth, maple syrup dripping down his chin. Mitch lumbers into the kitchen, grabbing the 4 remaining waffles, and then taking a can of beer from the refrigerator as soon as their mother leaves the kitchen to get ready for work herself. "Starting early, I see," Derek laughs. Mitch turns, grabbing his brother forcefully by the shirt. "We just got rid of one smartass. We don't need you trying to fill that void," Mitch growls. We're done with Jake, and we're better off for it. Wait and see. He was nothing but trouble." That's unfair. Jake's only recently been a problem. We had lots of good times with him, Rusty interrupts. "For you, maybe. I've been sick of him a lot longer," Mitch finishes, going out to his truck. "You guys need a ride or not? I'm not going to wait all day." Jake and Danny stand on the roof, waiting for the school day to begin, Jake still possessing the roof access key. "So what's the plan for today?" Danny asks. "The day proceeds as normal." "Okay. Then I meet up with Rusty." "Go on," says Danny, getting excited. "I push all the right buttons. And that's when you come in with the camera." "Huh? I wouldn't have guessed you were into that sort of thing," Danny says. "It's to document Rusty's suffering, you pervert." Danny shrugs. "Still sounds kinky." Jake rolls his eyes, not amused by his new companion's attempt at humor. "Your ability to cloud one's mind will be very useful today. It will require you to Jedi mind trick the principal," Jake says. "Sounds good so far. We want Rusty to feel cornered. I want him to feel betrayed and scared. Every emotion he's caused me will be reflected back upon him. A strong will won't be affected by my spell." "So it is magic." "I figured as much." Danny pauses, cursing herself for the slip-up. "You don't seem surprised," Danny says in response. Rodnovich may have not been a sorcerer, but he collected an impressive library of rare items and books from his travels around the world. Part of my training involved surviving against a friend of his named Adrian Scrimauer. Scrimauer used to be an apprentice somewhere called Endeligion? I don't know. He was a complete jerk. Made sense he was friends with a douche like Radnovich, come to think of it. He received training against a magical society apprentice? Even senseis told us to never engage in combat with one of them because of how dangerous they are. How deep was Jake's training, Danny wonders. Could he possibly have learned a way to ward off against demonic possession? Again reminded of his training over the summer, Jake freezes in place. He screams in agony as his right arm is consumed in flames. "Come on, is that the best you can do?" Scrimauer asks. Adrian Scrimauer is a tall, dark-haired man, with a lean build, yet still muscular. With a well-maintained mustache and goatee, black hair and pale skin, he resembles an old horror film version of Dracula. Tattered remnants of what once was a green cloak, denoting the rank of an Endeligion apprentice magician, are tied around Scrimauer's arms, and the red cloak of a master around his waist, in a twisted reminder of his past. "That's just a low-level spell. I could block that while taking a shit," Scrimauer says. Jake drops to his knees, his shoulder still smoldering. "Shut up," Jake hisses, glaring at the magician. "Don't be so weak and I won't taunt you," Scrimauer laughs. Jake launches himself at the magician, who fires another burst of magical fire. Jake turns so that the flames hit his right arm and throws all of his strength into a left hook punch. Scrimauer grins and knocks Jake to his back with a wave of invisible energy. "Heal him up. He doesn't seem to be taking to this lesson very well," Radnovich sighs. Jake is left lying on the ground unconscious. "He has really good awareness of physical and spiritual injuries, but he fumbles in the dark with those of the mystical kind," Scrimauer says. Then we've got to work to change that. He has 2 weeks left to get as powerful as possible. I intend to do just that, Ranovich says. Scrimar stares at his friend in confusion. Why are you so interested in helping the boy? You've never been one to train others before. 'Cause I'm supposed to, and that's all I can say about it, Ranovich growls. His tone is threatening, and it changes the subject. Scrimar is more confused than before, but keeps any further questions to himself. Was this training really the boy's idea, or did DJ somehow influence this to happen? I've got to admit, I've never seen him take so much personal interest in a stranger before. I wonder to what end he intends of this training, Scrimar thinks, leaning over Jake to heal him with magical incantations. We will only include weaker-minded individuals in our plan. It's best to work around our strengths and weaknesses, Jake says, finally shaking himself out of his daze. He isn't even fazed by this. He must be the one Sensei's looking for. There's no doubt about it anymore, Danny thinks. Come on, it's time for you to play your part, Jake says coldly. Rusty's in the cafeteria with his friends. He grinds his teeth as the words emerge, remembering how they were once his own companions. Don't do anything too obvious, but make sure he knows that you aren't just some typical goth. Danny quickly shoots him a look, slightly offended by his classification of her. She brushes the comment off and nods. Rusty may be able to sense energy by now. I'm not positive. Make sure you expand your presence enough so that he can feel it, if that's the case. And if he's oblivious? Danny asks, straightening her skirt. Jake eyes her once over and begins to walk away. We both know your cute little act is a cover. Let him see a bit of the real you hiding beneath. Chris walks through the lunch line with Miller and Lee. I'm telling you, the next game is going to be amazing. Run and gun, all action, Chris says. I like the puzzles and stuff in games, Lee says, choosing a square of pizza over the soggy-looking country fried steak covered with mysterious white goo. Hey, is that Jake over there? Miller asks, pointing to a teen in a leather jacket leaning against the far wall. It looks like him. Wow, he sure looks like his looks have changed, Lee says, surprised. His personality has changed, too. He went a little nuts at the start of the summer break and went into seclusion. I think he and Rusty had a fight about liking the same girl or something. Chris explains, also choosing the pizza. You mean Rusty's girlfriend? Lee asks. She wasn't at the time, but yeah, they were both competing for a while. And Jake wigged out because he lost? Lee asks, frowning. If I went all dark and gothic every time a chick told me no, I'd be touring with Trent Reznor right now. Partially. I mean, in his defense, his dad went missing right around the same time, too. I'd say it's just been a really hard summer for him, and he's trying to cope with it any way he can think of, Chris says. Miller comes up behind them, a pile of country fried steak shaking on his plate like jello. Chris eyes Miller's tray suspiciously. Really? Chris asks, narrowing his eyes at Miller's food choice. It may look terrible, but it's actually pretty damn good. Sick, Chris sighs, heading for the soda machines. Who's the girl Jake's talking to? Miller asks, referring to Danny, who sits on top of a table beside Jake. I've never seen her before, Chris replies with a shrug. She's pretty scary looking, Lee adds. Rusty stands at the lockers talking to Amy and K-Dog when Chris, Miller, and Lee walk up. Hey guys, says Rusty. You having a good day so far? Asks Chris. Why wouldn't I? You must not have run into Hurricane Jake yet today, then. Not yet, and kinda hoping that I don't. The school isn't all that big. You won't be able to avoid him all year, K-Dog says. Miller opens up a can of Mountain Dew, making sure to keep it hidden while he drinks it, in case any teachers are passing by. The rate he's going, he'll be expelled by the end of the first week. We can't bet on it, It's better to be cautious, Rusty argues. He was hanging out with some goth chick at lunch. He was looking pretty hardcore. I wouldn't want to mess with him, says Miller. Avoiding him's probably for the best. Rusty isn't afraid of him. If Jake starts something, that's all on him, Chris says. Maybe this chick he's talking to is a good thing. That could be just what he needs right now. Maybe a girlfriend will make him lighten up, says Amy. I've known Jake for years, and she just doesn't fit his usual type. She really looked like she could just as soon kill everyone in this cafeteria than say hi to them, says Chris. Have you looked in his eyes lately? I get the same vibe, says Rusty. Birds of a feather, then, adds K-Dog. We should encourage this. I think it'll be good for him, says Amy, going back to her previous point. Danny walks by them wearing a black tank top and a plaid schoolgirl skirt. Her hair is now dyed pink and black and cut just below her eyes, which it all hangs down into. Danny winks at Rusty and struts arrogantly past. Rusty balls his fists as she walks by. Amy caresses his shoulder, feeling him tense up. What is it? Do you know her? Asks Amy. That's the girl we saw Jake with, says Chris. She'd be pretty cute if she lost the whole disturbing outfit and too much makeup and mascara thing, says K-Dog. Always thinking with the little Kyle, mutters Amy. She's not normal, whispers Rusty. Well, duh, she's one of those weirdo goth chicks. You know, Marilyn Manson and lots of scented candles, says Chris. Not that. I know why she's hanging out with Jake, whispers Rusty. I didn't get very far, but I can still catch hints of things. What are you blabbering about? Asks K-Dog. At the beginning of the summer, Jake started trying to show me how to see a person's energy. It's like an outer skin all around us. He is a natural at it. He can sense things far beyond anything I could ever imagine. But I can see little faint glimpses of what he tried to show me. I got a really bad vibe from Jake yesterday. I saw a glimmer of his aura, and it felt cold and dark. What does that have to do with the girl he's hanging out with? Asks Amy. His aura was cold and dark, but it still had faint traces of his old self. Hers feels like the Arctic. Every inch of my body feels numb with coldness. So you're saying that girl is even more damaged than Jake? Asks Chris. No, just more evil, says Rusty, trying to relax a little. Amy's right. Jake is sick. He needs our help. This girl, she's sane, and she's still choosing to dwell in darkness. With her around, she's going to push Jake over the edge. Jake checks the hallway for movement and silently approaches the door to the AV closet. Danny eyes him with puzzlement. What do you need in there? She asks. Jake pops the door open, breaking the lock as if it weren't there. Danny is surprised at his strength. She wonders if he was always this strong, or if it's another result of his training with Rodnovich. I need that video recorder. Rusty's humiliation must be documented. Danny's gaze narrows. Humiliation? You aren't going to kill him? Jake is shocked by the suggestion. He knows that he's changed a lot, but he's not capable of murder. As much as he feels Rusty and Amy have hurt him, killing either of them has never even crossed his mind as an option. If Danny's serious, he decides he should be extra careful around her. The girl is dangerous. If I were you, I'd want to punish him much worse, Danny says, trying to fan the flames of Jake's growing darkness. I'd want to make him suffer. He took everything and everyone away from you. Doesn't he deserve whatever happens to him? Not death, Jake replies quickly. I don't have that right. Might equals right, Danny says, making a tight fist. Whoever has the power to enforce their will does not need to be constrained by concepts like right and wrong. Morality is subjective. What you and I think are wrong may be two wildly different things. Are conquerors evil? Are kings and generals immoral? Where's the line drawn? I'm none of those. Danny grins. But you could be. You have the potential to be so much more than you are now. No one would be able to stand in your way. You could crush all of your enemies and rise to ultimate greatness. A strong pitch, Jake says, cautious of the girl. You trying to sell me a timeshare? Danny laughs. Real power, the kind like you possess, attracts people. People are drawn to it like moths to the flame. I want to see you wield that power and help make it grow even more. It would be a shame to see what you have wasted here in this mediocre life. Mediocre? Isn't everyone's life like this at our age? It doesn't have to be. Tutankhamun and Alexander the Great were younger than us when they rose to power. David was just a boy when he slew Goliath and became the king of Israel. I don't think I'm up there with that kind of company. There's nothing special about me. Everything that I can do, I've met people that can do it even better. Danny shakes her head. You're selling yourself way too short. You need more confidence. I think getting rid of Rusty will be a major dam-breaking event to unleash your full potential. Fear of hurting friends or family is shackling your true power. They weren't concerned about you getting hurt. Why must you handicap yourself to their well-being? I'm not sure about all that, Jake whispers. That just isn't me. Your hesitation is holding you back. You should be able to take whatever you want, whenever you want it. If you wanted Amy, she should be yours. You allowed Rusty to take her. You're causing yourself unnecessary grief. If Rusty's an obstacle, remove him. It should be as simple as that. Well, it isn't, Jake replies. It's very complicated. Danny sighs loudly. You're making it complicated, and you're aggravating me. I'm only trying to make you better. I don't understand why you're constantly fighting me on this. Do you enjoy being miserable? Because I don't want to hurt anyone. I know what that pain feels like. No one should have to endure that. Danny begins to anger, feeling Jake's apprehension, causing him to slip backwards away from the darkness. Rusty stole your girl and turned your friends against you. He made you an outcast, all alone, with no one to turn to. You can't lie to me and tell me that you're okay with that. He must pay for all that he's put you through. I'm going to ruin him, yes, Jake says. Don't misunderstand. I've not forgiven him, and I'm not okay with what he's done. I'm going to isolate him from everyone he has in this world like he did to me. I'm going to break Rusty, and I'm going to enjoy it so very much. He stares at Danny intensely. But I'm not going to kill him. She grinds her teeth in frustration. We'll see your resolve when Rusty manages to bring you down even lower, Danny mutters. His will is strong. I'm having trouble swaying him even a little bit. If Jake chooses to embrace the darkness, it seems like it's going to be by his own choice. I'm unable to force him in that direction, merely guide his path. Red Hawk and Garcia walk past them, noticing Jake and Danny inside of the AV closet. Red Hawk gets a huge grin on his face. Jake, you dog, Red Hawk smiles. Back one day and you're already getting some action. I bow to your skill, brother. Danny's face reddens and she's insulted to the point of complete indignation. She struggles to suppress the urge to smash Red Hawk's face in. We aren't a couple, she growls. Red Hawk nods, still grinning. Sure, I get it. Danny balls her fist, shaking. No, I don't think you do. Jake taps her on the shoulder. Easy. He doesn't mean anything by it. We'll leave you two to whatever, Garcia adds, pulling Red Hawk along. I am not some guy's conquest, Danny says aloud, genuine emotion in her voice. Jake suspects that this is the first time of the day that he's encountered a glimpse of the girl's hidden true self. We aren't just ruled by our hormones. I got it, Jake says, shrugging. We aren't each other's types. Danny's eyes widen in surprise. What do you mean by that? Are you saying that if I were interested, you would not be? Jake shrugs. You're pretty aggressive. I don't like a pushover or anything, but I'm not about to be dominated by anyone either. Again, Danny angers. She had no interest in Jake. but it frustrates her to lose the power that she could potentially wield by not being an object of desire for him. It is a weapon she has lost within her arsenal as a female warrior. "You're probably too weak to be my type anyways," she says, trying to play the implied rejection off. "I thought I had all this power as a conqueror and whatnot. So you really were just blowing smoke up my ass after all." Danny's unsure how to respond, knowing she's messed up. She allowed things to become personal and let her guard down. "Damn it," she whispers. "What I said wasn't untrue." She decides honesty, or at least partial honesty, is the only approach that might bail her out at this point. "You wounded my pride a little to tell you the truth. No girl likes being told they aren't someone's type, no matter how tough the girl seems to be or tries to play it off." Jake nods. "I get it. Thanks for being real with me. I had a feeling the real you was a much more pleasant person than the one you're trying to put on in this show. I'd like to get to know this other self more, not the illusion you're fronting." Danny becomes unclear which of them now holds the upper hand on the other. "We all have to put our fronts up. Even you." "You're right. I'm far more vulnerable than I let on. I think maybe you're the first person that's really ever noticed. I haven't been trying to impress you or win you over. I've just been able to be myself. That's kind of refreshing. This may still help me," Danny thinks. "If he comes to trust me or see me as a friend, maybe my influence will have more of an impact." She is a little disappointed deep down that she isn't seen by Jake as someone that he might consider a love interest. Of course, she isn't looking for romance herself, but maybe dating him would have been able to endear her more to Yamura once he took over. It's not like he isn't cute or anything, she thinks, annoyed. I'd be a lot better for him than that freshman Amy, that's for sure. She quickly empties her mind of the teenage distractions. Danny has trained herself to be above these emotions. "I have a duty to fulfill. Sensei has tasked me with bringing Jake over to the darkness in his heart, and I cannot fail. If Jake doesn't become Yamura's vessel successfully, then I'll be the next candidate and be killed." Danny refuses to let that be the outcome for her. "It's him or me, and I will always choose me. I am a survivor. Jake's soul will cease to exist, and I will remain." A hint of sadness and regret comes with this thought, but she sweeps it aside quickly. Don't become attached. Don't see Jake as a real person. He's not a friend of yours. Jake is merely a container into which will be poured the purest essence of the Sakari. He will die, and it will be as if he never existed at all. Anyone that knew Jake will perish, and soon he'll be nothing more than a memory. Yamura will, however, be the foremost thought on the minds of the entire world. Jake finally finds what he's looking for. "Here," he says, handing Danny the camera. "Find a way to distract the principal and wait for my cue. Don't start recording until Rusty goes on the offensive. I'm going to force him into making the first move before I break him completely." Danny nods. She still does not like Jake's plan, but going along with it, she may be able to get him to do more of what she wants later. She hopes that this is merely the first steps of Jake's revenge and not his endgame. Embarrassing Rusty and even getting him expelled will not be enough to push Jake into the darkness fully. Jake is going to have to step over the line somehow. Only by crossing his moral boundaries does Danny feel that Jake will be ready to become Yamura's vessel. Radonovich stands with one foot on Jake's back, pressing down with all of his weight. The teen struggles to breathe, his face sinking into the wet mud. "What were you hoping to achieve coming to train with me? Did beating you in the tournament shatter your fragile little ego?" "This," Jake shakes, lifting them both up slightly as he pushes up with his tired arms, "has nothing to do with you." Radonovich hops backward before he loses his balance. "Then what is it? It must be something serious for you to keep putting your life at risk against me. What's worth betting your life on?" Jake's body becomes surrounded by a faint aura skin, protecting himself more from Radonovich's inevitable next attack. The man is notorious for striking in the middle of conversations when he thinks Jake's guard is down. "I have to beat Rusty at all costs," Jake growls. "I don't care if you're the devil himself. I'm going to learn all that you have to teach me, so that I can prove to everyone that I'm better than him." Jealousy is an ugly trait. I was hoping for a more glorious cause. Rodnovich materializes behind Jake and strikes him in the center of his back. The teen screams out in pain and stumbles forward, but immediately pivots with a kick. Rodnovich dodges and lunges with another punch. Jake leaps into the air and attempts to backflip over the charging bull of a man. Rodnovich reaches up and grabs Jake by the back of his shirt and slams him into the ground before pivoting to drop a knee down into his chest. Blood and saliva explode from the teen's mouth, and his eyes bulge considerably. Your cause isn't worth all of this. Your petty grievances are a waste of my time, Rodnovich growls. Jake grabs each side of the man's knee with his hands and throws him into the air. My friends and family were my life, he screams, leaping up and driving a fist deep into Rodnovich's gut. They were my soul, and they all betrayed me. I have nothing left in their place but pain. He releases his energy out through his fist, exploding and blasting Rodnovich through the wall of his trailer. Jake drops to the ground, exhausted. The pain you inflict on me is nothing compared to that. Rodnovich steps free from the debris, smiling. Why do you have to settle for simple grudges? Become strong enough to be great. Achieve something. The people in your life don't matter. Replace them with power. Fill the hole in your soul with strength. Forget about love and loss. Think only about gaining more power. I can't forget. Not until I've shown them all that I'm worth. Rodnovich's aura explodes into a brilliant inferno of black fire. He closes the distance between them in an instant, and decks Jake across the jaw. Jake's head snaps to the side and his body shuts off completely. He collapses, drooling. Only the whites of his eyes are now visible. You're never going to achieve the strength you seek, still holding on to those old attachments. You're going to have to cast all of that away to really grow. He can't hear you, Scrimauer says, kneeling beside Jake's body. His heart is barely beating. You damn near killed him that time. His neck is broken, his spine is all twisted up. I'm almost certain he's paralyzed. And fix him, Rodnovich growls. He needs to learn this lesson, or he's better off dying for real. Scrimauer's healing magic is powerful, able to repair any wound, no matter the severity, so long as the soul still remains in this world. For one regarded as a dark mage, this affinity for curative magic is peculiar. Ahura, or god-level magic, is rare and achieved only by the greatest magicians to ever live. Any spell may be upgraded to Ahura level, but few magicians are ever able to. Dukan Heles Ahura, Scrimauer says, mending all of Jake's bones and repairing the damage done to his nervous system. I am going to beat the next lessons into you, boy, Rodnovich growls. You are going to learn through agony. I am going to carve my words into your sinew so that you will never forget them. Danny walks into the principal's office, a large man with a thick black mustache that curves around his mouth like a walrus tusks. Greets the girl with reservation. You need to make an appointment, Principal Jenner says. I did, Danny replies, pointing to a glossy-eyed secretary outside of his office underneath her spell. Badare al controle. Principal Jenner freezes in place, his eyes glossing over. Turn off the security cameras for 1 hour and forget you saw me today, Danny says, affecting the man's mind. The principal sluggishly turns and switches off each of the security monitor controls. Danny grins widely and exits the main office. She walks around the corner and sidles up next to Jake, who leans against a locker. He's with his friends and girlfriend right now, just like you said, says Danny. Did he sense your aura? Did you make it obvious enough for him? Jake asks. Yeah, I could see him get pretty tense, Danny smiles. Good. He didn't let his summer go to waste either. I want him to feel just a taste of your power to keep him on his toes. I want him to think that we're going to come after him and everyone else like a bunch of bloodthirsty animals. I want to watch him squirm and push him to his breaking point. Did you set the rest of the trap? I stopped by the principal's office like you said to. Then it's time for us to turn the heat up. The bell to the next class rings and the students begin to scatter. Well, so long, Sir Rusty and his lady. We're off to advanced woodworking processes class, K-Dog says with a wave. It's shop class. Stop dressing it up, laughs Amy. Later, says K-Dog. I gotta go too, says Amy. Okay, I'll see you after class, says Rusty, giving her a kiss on the cheek. Amy walks away, leaving Rusty alone for a moment. Rusty sets his books aside and closes his locker, not turning around. Hello, cousin, Rusty says. What's up? Asks Jake, strolling up to him with his hands in his pockets and grinning. I'm just about to go to class. You? I never went to registration. I'm not even sure they have me enrolled this year. I just been sort of floating around, you know. Wherever the wind takes you, Rusty says, trying to understand where he's coming from. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a nice philosophy. No worries. Just floating around on the breeze like a carefree leaf. A leaf has to land sometime. It can't float forever. You can create your own breezes to prolong it. But you do have to come down eventually. You can ride the gusts, hover over the horrors of this life, and it'll be 10 times as bad when you fall. Jake pounds his fist into the nearest locker in agitation. That's just like you, Rusty. You always have to counteract someone else's happiness. I know you're not happy. You're miserable and depressed, Rusty says, trying to reach his cousin with a calmer and more rational voice. His efforts are in vain, as Jake only becomes angrier with each word. You can't bear to see someone else taking a different path than you. Stop running from your problems. You're going to get someone hurt. You aren't choosing to walk a different path. You're delusional and dangerous, Rusty says. Running from my problems? Why do you think I'm here? You're my problem, Rusty. I don't like you. I don't like anything about you. I'm going to take everything away because you don't deserve it. I don't deserve it? What makes you God? God has nothing to do with this. We're minor dots in his vision. We're meaningless. The world is full of hunger and war. He concerns himself with these things. Individual suffering cannot be helped. One must help themselves to make a change. What are you saying? Rusty asks, feeling hatred and anger radiating from Jake in thick waves. He coughs as bile rises in his throat. A stinging, acidic taste fills his mouth from the thick emotions spilling over from his cousin. I'm saying that I'm making a change. I want things to be better for me, even if that means taking them from you. You can't just take my life away from me. That doesn't make any sense. I'm going to take away the things that were mine to begin with. First my friends, my family, and then Amy too. Then I will take away the things you hold through your own actions. Your pride, your strength, and your drive. You will fall apart, and I'll be watching every step of the way. Rusty weighs his next words carefully. He knows that he could very easily set Jake over the edge even further. You won't do any of this. You're not that kind of person. I am? Was I that kind of person when you what? Jake shakes his head, trying to clear his mind of violent images which flash through it quickly. Never mind that. I guess I have to prove my intentions to you. What? Prove? You've met my new acquaintance, Danny, right? The cute little thing with the enormous dark power leaking through. Well, she'll be waiting outside of Amy's house when she arrives home later today. You sensed what lies beneath her petite little frame, correct? Then you also know that Amy will stand no chance of defending herself when Danny decides to have a little fun. You wouldn't dare, growls Rusty, balling his fists tightly. I thought you cared about her. I did, but now I don't. Guess it was just a crush after all. Jake shrugs and laughs. You care about her, and that's the fun part. You son of a bitch, Rusty growls. Go on, get angry. You and I were about even before I trained this summer, down south. You wouldn't last 5 minutes against me now. Rusty takes a deep breath and calms himself. A lot can happen in a short time. You should know that better than anyone. Yeah. Amy could be in the hospital before you even get home, Jake replies with a smile. Bastard! Rusty tackles Jake across the hall, slamming him into the lockers and pounding him mercilessly. Jake doesn't defend, merely laughing as Rusty hammers him with hard jabs to the face and chest. "Why aren't you fighting back?" Rusty holds his fist in the air in confusion, holding Jake by the collar with his other hand. Funny that only after a few words you become a vicious animal. You and me are a lot more alike than you'd like to admit. You just keep it bottled up, and that makes you more dangerous than me. "You're completely twisted," Rusty says. "Don't flatter yourself. You're not the sole focus of some deranged madman. You're just an actor." "What?" says Rusty, dropping him to the floor. Jake wipes his face and smiles, standing back up. "Say hello to the camera, star." He points to Danny, standing off to the side with the video camera. "You know what happened, and I know what happened. But from such a distance, she just couldn't hear what went on. All she could see was some disturbed student horrendously attacking another who couldn't even defend himself. You set me up? Oh, and the principal will just love this video. Maybe it'll even make the news. The principal will crucify you before he lets that tape get out and show how his students treat each other instead of learning. He won't allow that tape to get out. There'll be an investigation, and then you'll be made an example of to deter further occurrences." Danny lowers the camera and begins to walk away towards the principal's office. "I can't let you get away with this," growls Rusty. "Not worried about anything but your own tail now, are you? Doesn't take much to kill that heroic aspect of the human spirit, does it?" You psychopath," growls Rusty, balling his fists again. "Save it for the camera," Jake laughs. "You've had a summer to enjoy yourself. Enjoy your girl and enjoy your friends. I'm just catching up on lost time." "What are you planning?" strains Rusty, trying not to lash out again in his anger. "That's the fun part, trying to figure it out. It wouldn't be any fun if I told you." "This isn't a game!" Jake leans in close enough for Rusty to stare directly into his eyes. Instead of a reflection of himself, all he can see is black. "This whole stupid existence we call life is a game. Start forming a strategy soon or you're going to lose," he says, walking away. Rusty drops to the ground, staring at the floor with his head down. The teen stares at the floor, his mind tired and his spirit nearly broken. As he sits there in the hall for several minutes, the intercom finally kicks on. "Russell Rigsby to the principal's office immediately." Jake and Danny walk outside, Jake grinning proudly. "You seem pretty satisfied with the way that turned out," says Danny, sounding slightly agitated. "Completely. Right now I bet Rusty's getting suspended from school." "That's it? Don't you think he's getting off a little easy?" "And you'd rather I'd kill him," Jake replies. He's taken aback by her outrage. "I don't understand you. It's like you're two different people. Sometimes you're vicious, ruthless, a cold-blooded animal. At other times you seem to have concern and restraint. It's very unappealing," Danny says, turning her back to him in protest. Jake stares at her, struck almost speechless. "You're serious, aren't you? You actually would like me to kill him?" "I have no interest in whether he lives or dies, but he's your blockade. Until you can overcome your restraint against him, you're never going to find out what kind of power you're capable of." "This isn't a war. This is just life. A messed up, drama-filled life, but it's life. We're having family issues, nothing I want to kill over. I may not like him anymore, but I like to think that if I saw him starving to death, I'd still give him a sandwich. Life and war are the same thing. This is a war. Your conscience is at war with your destiny. You have to choose one over the other, or you're always going to be two different people." "She keeps trying to push me to become evil. What do my personal choices have to do with her anyway?" Jake wonders. "Are you trying to be my friend or train me?" Jake questions cautiously. "I don't want to see your talents go to waste." "My talents?" "You have a natural instinct for energy awareness. You're destined for battle. But as good as you could become, you're never going to be your best if you hesitate in a kill or be killed situation. You're too soft. Come on, I have a few people I'd like you to meet, says Danny, grabbing Jake's hand. Danny leads Jake down the street into the northeast side of town where the buildings are mostly run down and abandoned. She takes him to a large warehouse building. A warehouse? Jake says sarcastically. Either your friends are dealing in stolen goods or drugs. No one else uses abandoned warehouses for hangouts. Just wait and see, and take your shoes off before coming in. No shoes in a warehouse? They got nice rugs or something? It's a tradition of respect, says Danny, taking her shoes off and opening the doors. Jake looks up, taking his shoes off to see the warehouse conceals a dungeon-like martial arts dojo. 15 or so students train, while a large man with scarves, red hair, and huge arms leads them up front. Danny bows and enters the dojo. Jake cautiously follows her inside. Lieutenant Dwayne Rollins of the IMPD Homicide Department stands at the coffee maker in the break room. He's busy fixing himself the strongest pot of black coffee he can create when a cold breeze blows past his back. He has the sensation that someone is behind him and slides one hand to his sidearm as he turns around quickly. An older gentleman in a dark blue cloak draped over a black vest and pants stands in front of him. Lieutenant Rollins draws his gun, but with a wave of his hand, the intruder causes the gun to leap from his grasp and onto the floor. There's no need for that, officer. Torres Forgeron smiles and holds his own hands out to show that he's unarmed. I am here as a friend. Who are you? Lieutenant Rollins quickly grabs his gun from the floor and whips around to level his sights upon the intruder's chest. How did you get in here? There are a dozen armed officers at any given time in the lobby. I did not come in through the lobby. Forgeron continues smiling. And you needn't worry about who I am. You need only concern yourself with the knowledge that I bring you. We have a common adversary, and you are in a better position to stop him than I. What are you talking about? Your so-called spontaneous combustion killer. I will give you his identity, but you must bring him down with all of your available resources. Forgeron walks around the room casually, seeming to have no fear of the officer or his weapon. He is powerful, and will not hesitate to kill you, should you face him unprepared. How do you know the killer? He was a former student of mine. He was expelled for being an underachiever and taking shortcuts. He has since killed 2 of our representatives that attempted to subdue him. His actions of late are beginning to reflect poorly on me. Some regard him as my mistake. I have been ordered to see to it that he is no longer an issue. Currently, we cannot locate him. He's completely hidden from our sight. We only know the city in which he resides. Lieutenant Rollins begins to back towards the doorway, keeping his gun on the man. Seeing his continued mistrust, the intruder sighs with frustration. What will it hurt your investigation to check this lead out? We're still investigating the participants of the World Martial Arts Championships qualifier tournament. A noble effort and close to the mark. However, your query did not participate in the tournament. Instead, a student of his took part for him. A student of his? Lieutenant Rollins narrows his gaze and slightly lowers his aim, considering the implications. You mean he's an instructor? Forgeron nods and folds his arms across his chest. The man you are after is named Elian Schaefer. I doubt he has fled the state. Something has him convinced that what he's looking for will be found here. That is why all of the victims have been killed in Indiana, the man continues. What is he looking for? Shrugging, Forgeron replies. We don't pretend to know his motives. We just know that he's dangerous, and is using a power much more devious than you can imagine. I'm not quite sure how, but he's many times stronger than he ever was at our school. He's wielding power that he never had before. Caution is advised. Even I am not sure of what he's capable anymore. Lieutenant Rollins doesn't know what to think. The man's claims seem outrageous, yet he knows details of the case that only another officer working on it should know. Nothing has been leaked to the press, and all of the men working with him are trustworthy enough not to be talking off-duty about the case. He can't afford not to investigate this, Elian Schaefer. Even if it turns out to be nothing, the off chance that he is their suspect is too important to pass up. A good investigator follows up every tip and every lead, not allowing personal opinions to cloud the investigation. Find Elian Schaefer. Only then will the killing stop, Forgeron says, his body exploding into a murder of crows which scatter across the room. Lieutenant Rollins swats at the birds and ducks his head as they fly out of the room. He can hear the shouts of other officers as the crows cause a commotion throughout the station as they depart. After a few moments, he holsters his sidearm and stares into empty space in disbelief. A man magically appeared in here, told me the name of the killer I'm looking for, and then transformed into a flock of birds. He moves over to the coffee pot and pours some of it out into a small styrofoam cup. Without pausing, he drinks the entire contents and pours a second cup. Again, he drinks the coffee quickly in hopes that the extra caffeine will bring him back to his senses. Despite what may have been fatigue-related hallucinations, he now has a name, Elian Schaefer. Lieutenant Rollins returns to his office and sits down at his computer, typing the name into a search database of all convicted criminals. No results are returned. While he's slightly disparaged, he tries to maintain in his mind that not all violent criminals have a past history. He changes tactics, instead searching the name against DMV records. Through this, he's able to discover that an Elian Schaefer is registered as living in Rockland, Indiana. His previous residence was Indianapolis, just 2 years ago. Could he have moved to avoid detection? Lieutenant Rollins checks the other information the DMV yields. Social Security number, birth date, tag number, current address, previous address, height, weight, current employer. The height and weight list him as 6'3" and 245 pounds. This would put him in the same range as the man we see on the security cameras from the third murder. He finally comes to his driver's license photo and becomes 100% convinced he has found his man. Lieutenant Rollins prints the information and quickly takes it with him, heading down to the parking garage. Osteen, I'm headed over to a town called Rockland. I have a lead on the combustion murders. I'm checking up on it alone, but be ready to bring the thunder if things go south. Lieutenant Rollins leaves the message on his partner's voicemail as he climbs into his car. This lead is far too important for him to wait for backup to pursue. Rusty and Amy sit in the back seat of Amy's mother's car as she brings them home from school. The two teens talk as Amy's mother keeps the volume of the radio set low, some boy band singing barely audible. I just don't know where Jake is going to take this next. You didn't hear him. You didn't hear his threats. He barely sounded human, Rusty whispers. Well, I like that this caused us to get to ride home together and spend some extra time with each other, but I also don't like seeing you this stressed out either, Amy says, trying to smile and comfort Rusty, caressing his shoulder. I can't let you out of my sight. Jake said that he could have that Danny girl show up at any time, that she knows where you live. You don't think he was bluffing, trying to frighten you? Rusty shakes his head slowly. He sounded really serious. There was so much anger and hatred in his voice. Maybe we should just call the police. Say he's been making death threats and that he was behind the arson at the school yesterday. Jake's done something. Somehow blinded the authorities to his actions. I don't think the police will be any more helpful than the principal. Rusty shudders, remembering the verbal lashing he received from the principal earlier. Accusations that this violence could get the school's safety rating lowered, and a spark an internal investigation, and maybe even get the entire administrative staff fired. Rusty apologetically tried to defend himself, but it was of no use. It was as if the principal was set along a specific track he could not sway from. A glossy gaze covered his eyes, and his expression, as if he was half asleep, struck odd to Rusty. But he was unable to figure it out, unaware that such things as magic and demonic possession actually exist in the world. So what do? We can't live in fear for the rest of our time together at school until graduation, Amy asks. No, we have to do something soon. If we don't, I have a bad feeling that someone's going to end up dead. Dead? Aren't you being a bit over the top? Jake may be jealous and severely short-circuited, but a murderer? No, I don't think Jake is going to kill anyone. I think Jake's going to die soon. Don't ask me how. I just feel it, Rusty whispers, the sting of his own words feeling like bile in his throat. In the pit of Rusty's stomach, he still believes his fears, despite them sounding so extreme. It feels as if Jake's spirit is being swallowed, devoured by some inhuman beast. Rusty pictures a black cloud falling over Jake, consuming him and moving on. Nothing but bones are left in the black wake. Jake screams from within the darkness. Painful, frightened screams, but his voice is gone. No one can hear Jake as he cries out for help, devoured by the darkness. Rusty tries to calm himself, disturbed by his bad feeling and fears of what will soon become of his cousin. The rest of the car ride is silent, save for the low sounds of pop music coming from the radio, both teens terrified of the near future.